Hello everyone! Today I got to sit down with Maria Hamilton and Paul Kubit. With an eye on Midnight Alpha is here and the Midnight expansion coming around. I got to ask questions about player housing and the lore and how they are telling the story going forward. But first off, we spoke about Dimensius and what Madsen said about him yesterday in the deep dive.
Xal'atath assumed the power of the last VOIDLORD, Dimensius.
And that small statement means a lot, because what do you mean, last of the Void Lords? Where did the others go? Did he eat them? What does that mean for the domain of the Void? And unfortunately, when I asked the question, it was clear like this is going to be something that you have to ask Madsen himself, as they couldn't speculate as to what Madsen's words meant. So hopefully something that Blizzard will clarify in the near future. Then the second question was about Karesh and Dimensius. The original plan of the Void Lords was to corrupt the world's souls. And then we have a Dimensius out there who, instead of corrupting the world's souls with like Karesh, starts to devour it. Why? Why didn't it try to corrupt it? Was Dimensius like a rogue Void Lord, or is there a story there, or?
He was hungry?
Yeah, the nature of the Void in a lot of ways, and this is a lot of what you'll see in Voidstorm, or in any of our cases where we're dealing with the Void in Midnight, is to consume. Chris said in that very same speech where he was sitting in that sort of uncomfortable looking chair that Xal'atath's army is called the Devouring Host, because that is what they do. They devour. To corrupt a world soul is maybe a way of making it easier to devour, and this is how we saw the old gods sort of weakening world souls. But yeah, the Void is all about devouring, and for the ultimate goal of becoming stronger, becoming more powerful. This is what Xal'atath's been doing with that convenient dark heart of hers, is finding anything powerful that she brushes up against, Valoran, Dimensius, what have you, and take all that power for herself to devour it and then become stronger. So this has been Dimensius' MO this whole time, is to devour and become stronger.
The reason behind this question is that we have lore, the original plan of the Void Lords shooting out the old gods and corrupting world souls. This, in turn, is the catalyst for Sargeras' origin story of forming the Burning Legion. So it's a big deal, right? Corrupting these world souls is a big deal, a big staple of the lore. He was so afraid of the Void corrupting one of these world souls that he started to scour the universe. If that is the plan of the Void Lords, and Dimensius is a proper Void Lord, according to Madsen, the last of the Void Lords, why did he eat Karesh? Did he maybe go against the rest of his kind? Or are there factions amongst the Void Lords that don't care about the corruption plan and others that just care about consuming? What was this idea behind it? But it just appears that, that is what Dimensius did. He ate Karesh. Then for the spirit inside of Azeroth, the now called Prime World Soul, we've had the Void who wanted to consume it and control it and manipulate it. We've had Death coming for it, but we also had the Titans go for it. And originally it was said that these World Souls were just part of the Titan team, but now it's been described as like the Prime World Soul, the one that they've been looking for all this time. So why did the Titans leave Azeroth behind?
I believe in the archive, the series of archive revelations that are underneath Dornagal, we learned that they needed to study it, they needed to verify and confirm, and so they set up a structure here to do that. They very carefully built a variety of Titan machinery to allow them to study and be sure and experiment and understand the world soul. So they didn't leave so much as they left their minions here to run this and control this as they did their research. And so, a question remains, like, now that perhaps they've agreed this is the one, are they coming back?
Okay, so the memory vault tells us, like, our studies has confirmed Azeroth is the Prime World Soul, but it's telling us after the fact. The Titans themselves don't know this.
Well, they probably do know it now, but at the time that the recording was made, probably not.
The keyword is probably, right? But why I ask, and why it matters to me, is because a small change to the lore has a domino effect. originally, the world soul of Azeroth was not the prime soul. It was not the biggest one that the Titans were looking for. It was important, mind you. It was another of their kin, another Titan to wake up, but there were more out there that they were looking for. That was the reason why they left her behind. With making her the prime world soul, the one soul that the Titans have been looking for, you'd imagine that they want to keep a personal eye on her. And it's not unexplainable, right? If word would reach them about Sargeras and the Burning Legion, that would have been all the reason needed to leave Azeroth behind and go take care of business. My point is not that it's impossible to explain. I was just looking for a story or an explanation that gives a reason as to, okay, you've made this minor adjustment, so what does that mean to the Titan's motivation? Okay, moving on to player housing for features. The question is, with the utilities we can add to the houses, will Death Knights be able to runeforge their weapons in-house or in their town?
Potentially. One of the cool things about housing, we talked about this a little bit at the Q&A yesterday, is that it opens up lots of fertile ground for cool ideas, and this is firmly one of them. It's like, yeah, it would be cool if Death Knights were able to have some of their functionality available in the house. Whenever it comes to functionality, especially in a space which is like a personal space, we need to be cautious to make sure that we are aware of any maybe hidden collateral damage that could cause. You know, looking back to cases where there was a lot of functionality in garrisons, what that led to is a lot of people spending a lot of time in garrisons. We do want to make sure that there are reasons for you to want to interact with one another. It's not to say that that specific example of Death Knight Runeforging is a yes or no case for that particular reason, but those are the sorts of like trade-off game design decisions that we weigh when looking at things like that. So who knows? Maybe at some point in the future, there's a whole bunch of cool functional things I think we can do inside of houses like that.
Yeah, because that would be my follow-up question. Because indeed, you got the question of, okay, you want people in the player housing system, but also in the capital. How do you balance this with spreading it out? Are the utilities going to be stuck to the capitals? Do you have a list of this is what we want to add to the housing and this is what we keep in the capitals? Or is that still to be decided?
This is something we sort of weigh expansion to expansion. I think you saw in the past, for example, auction houses were something that we kept in Orgrimmar and Stormwind as a reason to want to go to those your capital cities, in addition to wanting to go to whatever the hub city was for that expansion. For example, I don't believe there was auction houses in Borealis and Zuldazar that you would go back to and so you'd have reason to want to go to both places, and that sort of changed. We said, okay, like it's less important to split among all these different places, but we do want to make sure that like if there's places that are relevant to the expansion that we're working on that you want to go to, that there are exclusive either benefits or conveniences that exist in those spaces. And so some of those will be related to housing this time around. Some of them will be related to Silvermoon, where you might want to go to Silvermoon specifically to do something like going to an auction house or a bank. Some of them might even be at places like the Arcantina, where every once in a while it will be to your benefit to stop by there once a week, once every other week to be able to check in.
Can imagine these days we also have like the auction house mount. So a lot of the utilities already are, besides, for example, Runeforging or the bench for your professions, a lot of it is already in your pocket. So I would be wondering, like, okay, if we can pull out our auction house mounts, it's going to be our dedicated guild member in the town anyways. Why not put in an auction house? And same with Runeforging. It seems to be why once the Death Knight should then teleport to their base and teleport back in again. It seems to be more contrived rather than keeping people in the capital city. Because on the other hand, perhaps the idea is to get people into the capital cities, perhaps there should be like events, like for example what we had with the anniversary of like a mount off or like a transmog competition, or bringing people together in the capital for different reasons than what they have in their housing.
Yeah, I think these are all fantastic points. Things that the exact type of things that we talk about as we're sort of balancing what services exist where.
Okay, then to yesterday there was a question about furniture that was up on the training post, and what about multiple items? But the question was also, what if we want 8 chairs? Do we have to collect 8 individual chairs in order to get that? Or is it like you unlock the pattern and now you have as many chairs that you want to use?
So you will acquire each individual piece of decor on its own. So if you do acquire a single chair, then you do have just a single chair. But we do want to, in most cases, in 90+% of cases, to allow players to be able to get more of a thing, particularly if it's something you're going to want a lot of, like chairs or windows, sconces, lights, things like that that are you're going to want to have multiplicative of them across multiple rooms, across multiple houses, and so on. And so if these are things that are unlocked, say via earning an achievement, well, you can only earn an achievement once. There will be vendors or other sources where you can go to get those once you've earned the first one. And similarly, if something is created by a trade skill, which hundreds of the pieces of decor are, then those you can just acquire as many of them either by crafting them yourself or by picking them up on the auction house, trading with a guild member, and so on.
So a mixed bag between the two. Okay. What happens when two players want to be on the same plot in the housing? So for example, I found a really cool one with like a stump next to my house, but my friend wants to be there as well.
Yeah, so this will depend on if you're in a public or private neighborhood. If you're in a private neighborhood and it is your guild and you only or a charter neighborhood, then there is that plot. You can work it out as friends or neighbors, the best you can to determine who wants to live where. And it is possible to move. So if you want to set up an arrangement where you get it in the summer and I winter there, then that's possible as well. And those types of things can be arranged. If you're looking at public neighborhoods and you go to the housing finder, you find a neighborhood, you go in there, you've got your perfect plot. I want horde plot number 20 because that's my favorite. Go over there and find that it's already taken. There are options. You can talk to the neighborhood sort of leader and say like, actually, I want to look at a couple other neighborhoods, and they'll pop it open, and you can search for ones that have that particular plot open. So there should be a lot of flexibility. If a specific plot is most important to you, then you should be able to get that one. If living in a particular neighborhood is more important to you and that plot is already taken, then you weigh your options from that point.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. So you have to work it.
I guess also if you want to live in the same neighborhood as your friend and you both want the same plot, you guys will have to come up with some method to, make a decision between you, right?
Yeah, just mock around for it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Then also the question yesterday was about a bookcase with interactive books. My question is about cutscenes. I would love to have like an in-game moment or place or NPC where we could rewatch all these in-game cutscenes that we have. In the past, we've had them in the garrison and then one in the Borealis Inn. They're all scattered across the world. If not in the housing, if not in the neighborhood, could we get one of these in the capital?
I think it's a great idea too, for sure. Yes, there's a bunch of really cool cutscenes that like it can only be like 6 months or a year later, and if you are reminded of one of these things, you're like, oh yeah, I forgot that happened. This, I very recently had this experience going through the War Within recap questline, where this is a questline that will show up prior to 12.0, where you can play through the entirety of War Within. And in that questline, which only takes a couple quick hours to complete, you do get to see most of the cutscenes. And yeah, there's a bunch of really cool ones in there. So I think this is also a great idea to sort of take back to the team and talk about. Is this something we could maybe include in housing, in capital cities somewhere in the future as a collection or a series of unlockables?
Beautiful. Lorewalker Cho is set to get more lore-walking stories. Right now in the Alpha I checked, he doesn't have anything new. Do you already know what topics he's going to talk about?
I do, and they're done, and I've played them, and they're awesome. Yes, we do have more stories coming. As you've probably noticed, we tend to try to do things that help inform players about things that are coming up. So Cho will have a new story before midnight launches. That will be coming out. And then after midnight in a later patch, he will have a couple more. And each opportunity we have, we will add more of them, usually in the smaller patches, not in the larger ones. So as far as the content releases, you can expect those to happen, in the smaller content releases.
More Cho. Always happy to hear. Then Sylvan's been mentioned to make a return in the expansion. I checked Windrunner Spire. No Sylvan is there, so I'm going to assume somewhere else. What about a Verisa or a Kil'Thuzz, Lady Vash, or a Jara? Are those characters that are on the roster? I don't need to know if they're going to do something, but more like, are they on the roster for Midnight or Beyond?
For Midnight or Beyond? Some of them are, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Especially with like Kil'Thuzz, people are like, oh my god, for the defense. With Xal'atath, she's our big bad. She's been whispering to us in Mythic Plus, and she's hovering over us, in this expansion, is she still going to be the driving force? Is she still going to be the big voice getting us forward?
Absolutely.
Okay. Then, right now, as we go into the starting zone for Midnight, it's a bit of a shift between, okay, I was just on Karesh, and now we're in the middle of the Sunwell. Is there going to be in-between storyline, and what could we expect for the Midnight pre-event? Is that already known?
Yeah, we do have a bit of a prologue that'll come out, and then during our pre-patch, we'll also have a a shorter storyline that helps introduce the pre-patch events. And that one will involve the rise of some cultists who support Xal'atath, who want to see Xal'atath be successful. And the campaign prologue will come out in that 11.2.7 patch, which is typical for us, and will sort of provide some foreshadowing and some look at what's coming. Sort of a way for the visions of the world soul to give us the warning that something bad is coming, and there I suspect you will see some windrunners.
Okay, all right, gonna go in there. Nice, thank you very much. You get me all excited about it. I'm like, I need to go in there, but I got a list. Legion Remix is playing with the open world difficulty. Could we see something similar for retail?
Quite possibly, yeah. We're really sort of waiting with bated breath to see how things go in the Legion Remix version of the world difficulties. Midnight has Prey, and Prey is a feature which touches on this idea a bit, where you can opt into contracts, which will take send you to hunt a particular target, and when you go to the zone where you're hunting them, in a lot of cases, particularly if you are in hard or nightmare difficulty, that's not just that enemy is harder, but the torments that you're facing alongside fighting this enemy will make the entire zone a little bit more challenging as well. And so these are the types of things that we're experimenting with. But yeah, we're going to look at and see how things go with Legion Remix, and we are all one team here working on all these different cool modes of the game that we hop into, and so we learn from one another.
And with Torment, you mean you're going to have debuffs while facing off in the boss, and those debuffs would also apply for the rest of the zone. Is that how I need to interpret it out?
Yes, that's accurate. Okay. Yeah, and some of those might be simple, enemies deal more damage, enemies take less damage from you, but a number of them will be more interesting. Like we saw an example in the video of summoned anguished versions or echoes of yourself that slowly march towards you, and if they reach you, you have to they deal a lot of damage, and so you're encouraged to deal with that while you're also dealing with whatever you were fighting while your prey target got the jump on you, and so things can get pretty hectic pretty fast.
Cool. Old content, Evergreen. We've seen the return of Visions, and also the Brawler skills been mentioned. Could we expect anything else, like a Torghast or Island Expedition or something else, to be brought back into Midnight?
Quite possibly, yeah. We are committed to making sure that players have a lot of cool stuff to do, and so with the launch of Midnight, we're going to have lots and lots of cool stuff to do. A whole set of zones and a whole set of new features and a whole set of new dungeons and raids and delves and all those things. But then as the expansion continues, we do have opportunities to look backwards to the pretty broad set of features that the game has built up over 2+ decades now. We saw that with Horrific Visions pretty recently, where we're able to come back to those, and I think a lot of people had fun collecting cosmetics and power from doing that. So yeah, we even in the development of Midnight, this is something that we thought a good amount about when building things like the Eretor's Journey questline. We want to make sure that our campaign doesn't always feel like it's just taking you to 4 new zones. Formulaic can become formulaic over time, and the mantra of if it ain't broke, don't fix it doesn't necessarily apply to World of Warcraft expansions. You want to have novel experiences and be surprised, and one of the ways that we can do that is by taking some of the campaign story but revisiting older zones, not even like Silvermoon, which is a revamped zone, but going back to Blackrock Mountain and seeing narrative that takes place in those spaces. And so in that way, even in Midnight, we're taking a look at some of our legacy content through a new lens.
Cool. Speaking of older content, like professions like fishing or archaeology have kind of been falling to the wayside when it comes to updates. Are there any plans of bringing those back? Like, for example, Dragonflight saw the Azerothian archives, and then that kind of hasn't been integrated in the War Within. I really miss archaeology is what I'm trying to say. Are we going to see anything with it?
I really miss archaeology too. Oh. I really, really do. I would love to do that. I don't see anything like that happening in Midnight, but that doesn't mean never.
Right. Okay. Then to the Hardenir. I've noticed they can wield the light and they can wield weapons. You got warriors, you got priests, but no paladins. Why can the Hardenir not become paladins? And attaching on to that, could we see a future at some point with the exclusion of druids where the class race combos are out of the window, where we can just become whatever race we want and whatever class they can play?
Yeah, so one of the reasons that the Heronir can't be paladins is just because they don't have a tradition of paladinship within their culture. We really are seeing, outside of Orwena, we're seeing first contact with the Heronir right now, and so they are what they are. They are what they've learned and what their people are about. And they do have traditions of priesthood, traditions of druidism for sure, traditions of being warriors and rogues and hunters and the like, but never founded a paladinic order, if that's a word. That's not to say that they're incapable of learning how to be paladins. It's just that it hasn't been part of their culture up to this point. So that means that the door is open in the future for them to be able to learn things like that. And I say the same is true of all races in Azeroth, that they're not incapable of learning a particular way of fighting or power source. Yeah, there might be some things, like not everyone has the wings to do evoker abilities for sure. But outside of that, there's not a lot of reasons why you couldn't be able to learn specific abilities. So who knows in the future? So
is there, because if we're talking about narratively speaking, there could be a reason that they could learn. So is there a design philosophy behind it, why it's still locked away? Because in the past, I always imagined it had to do with the racials, that certain racials might be too powerful with the classes, or maybe it's the old philosophy of Horde versus Alliance, Shamans versus Paladins. But that all seems to have, over the years, seen flown away and kind of become fluid. So is it like a philosophy, or why are there still locks in place when it comes to those combos?
I think it's been mostly just world building philosophy, that, as we when we first started building World of Warcraft, we looked at the cultures of what orcs, trolls, and tauren were about versus what the cultures of what humans, dwarves, and elves were about, and so on, and really built those race class combinations with that in mind. It's been decades, both in real time and in game time, since these cultures have learned and grown from one another as well. And so that's why you've seen over time more race class combinations have come online. And in a lot of cases now, everyone can be a hunter, everyone can be a warrior, and so on. What we're seeing in Midnight is a cool opportunity lore-wise to add one additional one, which is the Void Elf Demon Hunters, which takes place actually in the pre-patch, where there'll be a quest line which explains why these Void Elves are willing to put on the blindfold and become Demon Hunters during this point. And then we're going to continue to look at that as these cool story opportunities come along. It doesn't always have to be a story opportunity, but this is oftentimes the trigger that says, like, this is something that's happening in the world, which is opening up not only new story opportunities, but new gameplay opportunities for players as well.
Yeah, we like to try to explain it too when we can, when it doesn't feel like it was an obvious choice. So, like, for example, when we opened up Warlocks for All, we had a quest line that you could play that helped explain why certain other groups were interested in becoming warlocks, why you would have a Lightforged Draenei say, yes, a warlock is what I want to be. So we are trying, when we see that there's potential conflict in someone's mind, how could that be possible? So we do try to explain those when they seem out of the ordinary. And I can tell you that, like, the team loves writing those kinds of stories. That's a very fun assignment to get. To do something like that. It opens up a whole class, or in this case a spec. Very, very, very popular. But we do try to make sure there's a reason that it can still make sense to hold to that original world building philosophy.
Okay. Speaking of the Void Elf Demon Hunter Unlock questline, is it going to touch upon why they sacrifice their eyes?
It doesn't in this case. This one. So in in Ghosts of Karesh, you may recall the questline where we had some cross group curiosity, where there was a Void Elf interested, and also a demon hunter interested in the void, and we had sort of this I'll teach you if you teach me situation. That story will continue in Midnight with those with the characters that were involved, or one of them anyway. But the introductory quest line for the Void Elves is more about what they can bring to the table and how they can use the void rather than the fel, and why this is a good path for them, or a powerful path for them to follow.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because we have the original Demon Hunters who saw the same visions that Illidan saw with the Legion. So they tore out their eyes, but the Legion's been defeated. So I was wondering, maybe these Void Demon Hunters can see visions from the Void, and that's what caused them. But if it's not a subject, then that's not in there. About the storytelling going into the War Within, we had the campaign at the start, which was not time-gated at all. I think we had like 1 week. Is that something we can also expect from Midnight at launch?
By and large, you're going to be able to play through the entirety of the story up to, the gates of the raid. To the end of the Voidstorm zone, from the beginning, from week 1 of the game. We will still have a season 1, which starts, and that's when we do step into the raid. And the story does actually continue from that point. So we will see once you're in the raid, you'll be able to defeat the bosses of the raid, whether in a group or in story mode, and then. Slightly different from what we've done in the past, we do have multiple story raids this time, and those are separated by content. And so there will be a couple weeks where after you finish that first raid, there will be more questing that becomes available that deals with what happened after that first raid. You do some stuff. I don't want to get into too many specifics because once we get into the raids, we're starting to get into a little bit of spoilery territory where I know a lot of folks don't want to know exactly what happens. Would prefer to play it, and then you do go into that second raid as sort of a conclusion or denouement to what happens after the first one.
Okay, and with that in mind, because what kind of happened, the plus side was, okay, we have everything. Downside was, it was difficult to see the timeline. And yesterday was also a question in the direction of new players coming into the storyline. Could we see something added with, like, I don't know, book chapters or indicators, like, okay, this is how the story plays out timeline-wise?
Like some sort of chronological indication?
Yeah, like right now we have like the chapters you can click on while you're in the campaign. It gives you a summary. But imagine something like that. But then you can see like, okay, this is the quest lines you still need to do. This is where you can find them. This is how you're supposed to play them. And after the fact, you can see like, this is the timeline. Because in the War Within, for example, the general shows up in the raid, but reputation-wise quest dies. So does the reputation quest happen after the raid? But what about the main campaign that happened before the raid? Like, did we face Xal'atath before taking down the queen? And if so, like, the timeline kind of became wibbly-wobbly because it's all released in its own way.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's a really cool idea. We've talked about when we were talking about lore walking, and in particular the recap. We've talked a little bit about how it can be hard for players to know what they should do in what order if they want the sort of the prime timeline of events. But this is a good idea. We don't have this coming in the midnight release, but I think it's worth talking about and thinking about.
Yeah, I'll add in midnight that the story is just built there. We build our expansions differently lore wise, and the raid that we fought at the end of that first season of the War Within was fighting against the Queen, but a lot of the main thrust of the story was completed through questing, right? It was that Xal'atath moment was not really part of the raid; it was part of questing, and that's what leads to some of that discontinuity. Midnight's main campaign does lead pretty directly through 2 raids, and so whether or not we have a chronology available, I think there'll be fewer confusions about the actual order of events this time around, just due to the nature of how it's built.
Okay, we're getting to the last few minutes as well, so some requests on my end. Could we get an audio slider or maybe an option to mute the world quests that are yelling from you down below? As you fly across the zones, they'll be like, hey, the kittens are very interruptive, come down. And I'm like, please shut up.
Noted, heard. Yeah, we'll take it back to the team.
Could we get a way to sort achievement points by what they give us reward-wise, similar for the trading post, so that we're like 200 achievement points sorted to the top, same with the trading post, and could we get a button in the achievement window that allows us to go back in it without having to reset the entire thing? You can right now install an add-on that gives you that option. I would like to have a baseline.
Yeah, I think these are great ideas too, and I would say I tend to agree with you that the achievements system has grown and grown and grown and grown, and in doing so, it's become harder to sort of separate the wheat from the chaff. There's for every achievement which grants you a cool mount or a really important title or is an important part of your progression, there are 10 achievements which are more fun about participating in a particular local story about saying that you love squirrels and things like that, which both things have their place, but it's gotten big. And so I think that this is something that we do want to look at some point in the future. This is nothing that we're going to look at for Midnight specifically, but I do agree.
There are add-ons that have like a lot of power for this one. We have gearing that's become a bit more streamlined, and I'm looking for somebody to sink my teeth in the game. Could we see something in the future as a request, like a long-term artifact quest line, like Refion, for example, back in Mr. Pandaria, or like something cosmetic or furniture or something really cool to show off that you can really work on towards for months?
So you're looking for a very long tail kind of, not grindy, but many steps to achieve.
Casual content in the background to sink your teeth in.
That's good to know.
And
Go ahead.
Beautiful. And the last one, on the YouTube channel right now, there's an animated short for Illyria, which is extremely popular. I think it's getting close to 10 million views. What are the hopes, ideas of potentially seeing a Warcraft animated show?
I think it would be really cool. Yeah, So that Illyria video, we agree, it was really cool. We're always like looking at really different ways we could present World of Warcraft or the Warcraft universe to folks in our game or without. Nothing specific to announce right now, of course. But yeah, I think we agree that like the Illyria short was powerful and
it was gorgeous. It was awesome
as well. Yeah.
Just saying, the Arthur story would go hard. I'm just saying, there's such an audience that would love to see it. Well, thank you very much. I think that's all our time we have for today. Yeah, thank you. Sorry that I went really quick, but I had like 2 pages to go through. We got most of it. Thank you so very much for this.
We covered a lot of ground. Yeah, I want to say thank you for the great questions. Thanks to you and your community for playing the game.
Thank you so much. You gave us a lot of things to think about. Appreciate it.
Of course. Good luck with all the other ones.
Thank you.
Okay. Cheers. Bye.